Kristy, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ketaki. Good to see you again.
All right, so I'm very excited to begin this because this topic is going to be very exciting. And I feel that when it comes to presenting ourselves, that's one of the most underrated skills in the corporate world. So I'm looking to understand from you how you can demystify this aspect for all of us and give us some secrets that we can take away from this session.
Beautiful. Let's
All
go.
right.
Let's do it.
Yes. So the first question is, I would like to understand more about your journey and what has brought you and what has shaped you into the person that you are today.
I thought about this because you were gracious to send this in an email, so I had time to not be thrown. And I want to say that everything has come down to movies for me. Because I've tried to think like, what is the through line? What's the core connector? And I've always loved human behavior, but I've loved it in a very creative way. And I've always been connected specifically within the arts to movies more than anything within the performing arts. And it's because movies have this way of doing all of the parts of communicating that we all need to work on, right? So being present, listening, being self-aware without being self-conscious, being able to share a story with impact, being able to empathize, and being able to transport people so that when they leave, they ideally leave feeling more connected, more collaborative, more part of something bigger than themselves, more interconnected. And from there, I just realized, like, being young, loving movies, like most kids do, following that within school, like within college, I did offshoot of movies I was in within communications. I did advertising, public relations component of a major in school, but it was really the role play that I loved the most when we got to practice pitching, and it was the acting and the writing and the creating that I loved because I felt so connected. So I carried that through. And when I moved to New York City for a while, I was working with an organization called Young Audiences, and it brought the arts into public schools across all public schools, all the boroughs. And when 9/11 hit, we were off the hook. Like, our phones couldn't answer enough calls because these teachers were calling super helpless. Like, how the heck do I talk to a kindergartner about what happened, or a fourth grader, even a sixth grader, 12th grader, when I don't even know how to explain it myself? But the arts allow us to express ourselves without having to feel scared. So there was something that clicked with me there where I was like, okay, there's something here to take the arts off of what we're used to seeing in traditional sense of a stage or on a film set or even in a museum, and incorporate it in the world. And everybody goes into the schools, but I started thinking, like, it's great to work with the kids, but what about the parents who live in the same house? Like, if they go to work and they're not communicating or understanding how to express themselves, it may tangle things up a little bit more. So that eventually led me to focus within organizations, because I was like, where do adults spend the most of their time? At work, right? And so I go in, 100%. And how can we make it so that we feel more inspired and of value and a sense of contribution? And to me, there was an intricate connection to the arts, to communication, and to the techniques that I learned in acting classes naturally translate to help people communicate better.
All right. So what led you into the coaching part of it? Were you always interested in showing people what they could do or helping them unleash what was within them?
I was, but it's funny because I think I looked at it differently, and I love coaching because it's not about me at all. It's, like, I think when I first was thinking more therapy, because there's connections, but they're very different. Beyond the training, they're just very different, even though they have overlap. And I was always drawn again to movies that had to do with mental health, like Ordinary People in the 70s and Girl Interrupted with Winona Ryder. It takes place in a mental institution, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and all of these movies that had to do with mental health. I'm like, I'm so drawn to that. And I realized with coaching, what really drew me to it was the fact that it's about the person. It's about me guiding them. It's about me supporting them by listening and being present and asking questions, and them knowing what they need but creating a space where they feel safe enough to admit what they need. Because a lot of times we don't, for a myriad of reasons, feel comfortable to really verbalize what we want or need for sake of feeling judged, or that our relationships will be ruined, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But also, how often are we really listened to too? So it was that combination that really drew me into coaching, and specifically within organizations.
I love it. And if I were a recruiter right now, I would hire you right away because I love I love the answers that you're giving us. But I think the most amusing thing about coaching is the fact that all of the answers reside within us, and the coach helps you just find those answers and connect you to those answers, right? So I think self-awareness is a very big part of what we present and how we talk to people and how we interact with people around us. So how would you say, based on your experience with your clients and based on all the coaching experience that you've had, how would you say that someone inculcates a sense of self-awareness within them? Because everyone talks about finding ourselves, but that's the most difficult thing to do on this earth. So what would be your advice on that?
Yeah, so it's very, finding yourself is very broad. It's murky. Like there's no real context to it. So I would say shelve that idea, right? Which is kind of what you're saying. And self-awareness is really being present. And it sounds so boring, and we're so busy that it's like, really? Like, but it changes everything, and so much for the better. And so what I would say is that self-awareness is the foundation for everything. I think self-awareness and self-compassion are like the building blocks for foundation for everything, because to be self-aware means that you're starting to pay attention. So you have to be self-compassionate, so you don't berate yourself for things you're seeing or get too haughty and arrogant about things you're seeing. It humbles you and humanizes you at the same time. And so practices for self-awareness are, I'm biased. I would say get a coach, because it holds you accountable to stay with it and to build the practice, because that's what I feel like the vast majority of coaches do, no matter what their niche is. It doesn't matter. They help people pay attention to their behaviors and where their thoughts go. And that's really what it is. And so if you wanted to start super simple, you can meditate. Great. If that's your thing, keep doing that. If you're interested in doing it, there's tons of great apps that are out there that are really easy, user-friendly, intuitive. Okay. And then also it's a matter of like grabbing a pad and marking like a timer on your phone for 3 times a day, and just jotting down, like, for say 2 minutes, 3 times a day, what are you thinking in that moment? How are you feeling in that moment? And then just do it for a week. And then at the end of the week, see your notes and just see if there's any patterns. See if, I mean, it could be anything from how you feel about certain people in your life to, I notice when I eat this type of food, I feel better or worse. I notice when I sleep this amount of hours, I feel better or worse. I notice if I don't watch television before I go to bed, I feel this way. If I read, it's just, if I read my kids' stories right before I go to bed and I don't jump on the computer afterwards, I feel better. Like, it's just paying attention. So it's the accountability though, because like any habit, super easy to fall off the wagon, like to be super gung-ho and then not continue it.
Absolutely. So you talked about hiring a coach, but let's say that people who cannot afford to have a coach and they want to start really small, then they could start monitoring their daily activities and journal about how they feel about it. But not a lot of people like writing though. So how can they start really small, and how can they get themselves to do this? Because this is too much to ask for the first step.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to answer both of your questions. So the first is, get an accountability buddy, Ketaki. Listen, I really want to become more self-aware. I just feel like it'll help me as a leader in my organization. I feel like it'll help me connect with my colleagues and my direct reports better. I feel like it will actually help me just shift my perspective on what I'm doing and contributing. And you're a friend of mine, and can you help me out with just keeping me accountable? Sure. What does that look like to you? How can I help? What can I do? I just want to be able to text you once in a while. Or can you just text me at the end of the week on Friday and just be like, how'd it go? Right. I don't know. Can we play with this and see? And like, you kind of have that conversation with a friend. So it can be free. It's an accountability buddy, right? So if you have that, awesome. So that's the free part. Or your partner, you know, whatever, but just that's the free part. The area of what you can do if you're not a writer is I'm going to give you one that I feel like works across the board. It's always accessible and you don't need anything. So it's amazing. So you can write. If you're a writer, you can also take this exercise and write it. But if you're not a writer, many people watching may have heard of it. It's just called the 5 senses exercise. So you take your senses, right? So sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. So we're talking physical. We're not talking like, we're also talking like your body. Like, are you feeling your heart beating? But it could also be something tactile, like the desk or whatever it is that you're touching, or your butt on the chair, whatever, your feet on the floor. So what you would do is I start like this. So I start with eyes, and I go to ears, and I go to nose, and I go to mouth, then I go to touch, because it's easy for me to think of it that way. And you just name 5 things that you immediately see. Immediately. You don't think about it. You don't debate. Do I want to say the computer or do I want to say the plant? No, you just say it. And then you move to 4 things you can hear. Then you move to 3 things that you can smell, 2 things that you can taste, and 1 thing that you can feel. And it immediately takes you out of your head and into the present moment. And you can do it. I mean, it's such a beautiful activity to do transitioning, right? So transitioning between meetings, transitioning between whether they're on site or Zooms, transitioning between ending work and going to pick up your kids, or meeting your kids when they come off the bus, or transitioning between clients, or transitioning between work, and the whole thing with the boundaries between work life and home life, with everybody being home. What a great ritual. Like, I'm going to do the 5 senses exercise. And when I do that, it's my way of telling myself that I'm now home. I'm not in a work mode. So you can make it however you want it. And I love it. I think it tells us so much about ourselves. And it can bring stuff up, because you might see dirty dishes, and that might bring up it might bring stuff up, but at the same time, it's about you paying attention to not get trapped in that monologue that we have going on in our head. Like, I have to do the dishes. I can't. Nope. You just catch it.
Right.
And then move on to the next thing. So there is a meditative mindfulness component to it too.
Yeah, and I love these ideas, and I feel that these are very easy to start with, because having an accountability partner, that it's so easy. You can literally pick up any of your friend, and that can be your accountability partner, and that way you're not cheating on yourself, because when you say that you want to do something, you're doing it, and then you can eventually build it into a habit and find yourself a little by little, and be more aware of what you feel throughout the day and what you want to feel. And definitely, I think the 5 sense exercise would be a great way to understand and take a pause to reflect on what is happening and how you want to feel right now. So that as you said, would form the foundation of what happens when you talk to people, and how you want to interact with others, and how you want to present yourself. Because we talk about personal branding, and we talk about what is our perception and how do others perceive us, and we want both of those to align with each other. We want people to think the same as what we think about ourselves, and when that happens, I think that calls for a great presentation, that calls for a great connection with people. So when it comes to situations at workplaces where you have to interact with people, and that can have a lot of consequences. So for instance, negotiating your salary with your manager, or maybe pitching for a promotion, or maybe pitching for the next career transition, whatever it might be. There are certain conversations where you have to communicate for impact. So what would be the strategies that you would share with our professionals that they could use to present themselves effectively and communicate better? Because it's all about verbalizing our thoughts at the end of the day.
Yes, you were so articulate in presenting that question too, which is amazing. So thank you for that. I want to back up a teeny bit, but it offshoots from your question. So the 5 senses exercise can be used with everything. Right. So before you're about to present, whether it's talking to your boss, because sometimes people also get nervous about talking to their direct report if they have something that they have to confront. They might be like,
Right.
oh, this person's been late a few times and I got to have this. And they look at confrontation with this heavy load, but it's like, you're having a conversation. So that's my first hack. Take confrontation out of your mind, just switch the word, just reframe and change it to a conversation. We're having a conversation. I'm going in to be curious. I'm not going to just assume, but maybe they're consistently late, or maybe this is happening. I'm going to go in curious. I'm going to go in clear. So we'll get to the clarity in a second. But by doing the 5 senses exercise, whether it's talking to, no matter where you are and who the person is within your organization, or if you're presenting classically to a client or to the board or on a stage in front of people, like whatever, by doing the 5 senses exercise, you're able to understand your environment. So things that you may not have even thought of, because maybe you're so freaking nervous that you're like, all of a sudden you realize I have to bring a layer because I'm feeling cold actually. Oh, great. Okay. Or I'm feeling uncomfortable. Like this chair is really uncomfortable, or it's wheeling. Okay. I want to be stationary. So the 5 senses touch part will show you that, right? Seeing. Okay. Oh, okay. I want to make sure that I put another plant in here, before I present, or I want the back where people are going to see it. If I don't have a beautiful background, like I want to be able to clean it up a little bit. So what you see, what you're hearing, this is way too loud for me to present Zoom here. I have to go to a different room, so it just allows, or even if you're on site and you're like, I'm going to have this conversation, or I'm going to be presenting, maybe within transitioning back on site, your company has restructured where people are sitting, and so all of a sudden the room that you used to be able to present in is right above a lot of noise. So by doing the 5 senses exercise, you're able to understand, like, oh, no, I'm hearing stuff. And we have to find a different room to do it in. So it's a beautiful way to do that. And then to look outside of yourself, which leads to the follow-up of what you're asking. Look outside of yourself. That's what it is. It's shifting that. You and I talked about that when we were off camera. It's like, we have gotten so, to bring back to what you were talking about at the beginning, this find ourself and our self-awareness and our self, that it's almost created this unintentional, not ill-intended, slight narcissism of being a better person. We make it about us when really it's not us or you, it's we, it's us. Yeah. It's not me, it's not you, it's us. This conversation is not about me, it's not about you. It would not be happening if you didn't start this podcast, and it would not be happening currently if I didn't talk to you and we met. And so it's us. So if we start looking at it more as a conversation, as a connection between people versus a invisible divide putting us on different sides, right? So the self-awareness component is really about you being able to find ways to pay attention to what you're saying to yourself, and then change it, and then drop back into your body. Because what's compelling, and you and I have spoke about this, is when you're present, you have a presence. Everybody wants a presence when they're communicating. They want to be engaging and they want to be charismatic and they want that. Okay, great. But if you want that, you're making it about yourself. Yeah. Why do you want it? How is it benefiting other people? It is benefiting other people, but get clear on how it is, because then once you're clear, your audience is clear. Even if you don't say all of the background that you thought of why you're doing what you're doing, you just need to know it, because then your energy is clear when you show up, right? So you and I talked about this. So this could be for classic presenting, like I said, whether you're on a stage or a lectern. It could be when you're having a conversation with a direct report or a colleague, doesn't matter. It's shifting your mindset to think about the other person while doing the exercises and the work, to think of yourself, to bring it back to movies, almost like the self-awareness is like watching yourself on a movie. It's being able to get objective enough that you can see yourself without going cringing. That's the self-conscious part, and it happens, and that's normal, and that's part of the process. But you get to the point where you're like looking like, oh, okay, I'm talking a little quickly, or I move my hands a lot. It's not awful. I don't want to be a robot and be like systematic, but how can I reel that in a little bit? What do I need to do? Don't drink as much coffee before you present. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, ground your feet down. Like there's hacks that we can do that you can talk to a friend about, or create like, you know, if you want to do it to be cost effective, if you have a really tight team in your organization, create a buddy system. Be like, hey guys, I feel like this will totally take our leadership to a totally different level. Can we just have, when we do our meeting, can we do like a self-awareness check-in for like 5 minutes at the beginning, just to kind of see where we're all at, and then start the meeting? Cool. And just have the conversation, you know. But just to bring it all home, you and I talked about this, and so I connect it into 3 parts, right? So it's by being present, by paying attention, creating your self-awareness, you're then more comfortable to then put your energy on your audience, so you automatically have a presence. Because I'm paying attention to you right now.
Right.
I have a presence. You're paying attention to me. I can feel it. You have a presence. So done. So now we're moving on. And now engagement. We want to be engaging. Well, I'm engaged with you, so then I'm engaging. Right?
Yeah.
Because I'm paying attention to you. So now I'm engaging. You're drawn into me because I'm drawn into you. Right? And then the last is the confidence. I have so many clients, like, how can I be more confident when I'm speaking?
Right.
Being present and being engaged. Confidence is byproduct. It comes from that. So when you're present with your audience and when you're engaged with your audience, naturally you're confident. And they have confidence in you because they trust you, because we can feel when someone is with us versus making it about themselves. We can feel it. It's hard to explain because we may not have the words, but it's that feeling when you go, something's off. I just don't feel that connection with that person, right? So just to take that one step further, if you are prepping, the one question you can ask yourself for whatever type of conversation with one person or presenting to 50, 500 people is get clear on your intention. So there was one client, which I spoke to you about, who was presenting a regular report. They've always presented this report for the last few years. And it's kind of gotten a little like, I jokingly referenced a movie to him called The Visitor, which everybody should go see. It's with Richard Jenkins and it's fantastic. And it opens up with him being an instructor, and he's just kind of humdrum and just, you know, just stagnant and in this complacent space in his life. And he goes through to a syllabus and he whites out the previous year and dries it and then writes in the new year. So he didn't change anything about his syllabus for the next school year. He just whited out, you know, and then he's going to bring that to this year. And then, so that's kind of what I felt like this client was feeling. Like I'm bringing these things to this group of people, and it just feels like it's the same old, same old. Right. So I said, well, what's your intention? And he's like, well, what do you mean? And we had this whole conversation, and him simply changing the intention to why he was doing it. What value was it bringing for his audience? And what value was it bringing for him? Oh, we worked on it for a few sessions. His boss was like, best presentation ever given. He felt the most connected to the people who were his senior and felt really part of something. Like, I feel valued, but I also value you. I'm not just giving you information. I'm getting clear on why it's important to you and what you may want from it. So it's getting really clear on your intention.
Yeah, and I love that idea, because I think most of us, when we give a presentation or when we start a conversation with someone, most of the times we are not clear about our intention. We know that there are certain things to be discussed, but then we have a very rigid template that we want to follow, and we just go there, enact that like a role play, and come back without understanding what is the other person feeling. And we don't improvise it based on the other person's reaction or even their body language, because that can also be a very good indicator of what is happening. Is the connection existing? Can you change it a little bit? Can you tweak it? So that self-awareness, to start with the clarity of what do I want this person to feel, or what do I want the audience to feel after this is done, or what do I want them to take away from this session. I
Exactly.
think that would just transform everything that you do. And if you start preparing towards that even before you have that conversation, then that is all the confidence that you need. And that just simplifies so many things out there, because we always view these conversations and presentations as something very complicated and intimidating, but it's not.
Totally. It that is my goal in life, is to demystify for people that we've had it all wrong for years, and that has always been within us. We just have to change the way that we've been programmed to look at public, not just public speaking, but
Mm-hmm.
having conversations, like how to have difficult conversations or conversations that may bring up anxiety. It's shifting our perspective. But I want to go back to one thing that you said that just is absolutely it. It's getting clear on two things. How do I want to feel, and how do I want to have my audience feel at the end? And for you, how do you want to feel at the end? Start there.
Right.
How
Absolutely.
do I want to feel at the end? I want to feel grounded, and I want to feel a sense of belonging, and I want to feel a sense of contribution, and I want to, sure, you want to feel confident. That goes without saying. But what does confident mean? I want to feel inspirational, like or that I offered something, that I gave them I want to feel that sense of community, whatever it is. So maybe that's gratitude. Maybe it breaks down to that feeling. Go in with that feeling. Get clear on that and go in with that feeling. And you don't know how your audience is going to feel, but getting clear on how you want them to feel gives you clarity. And then one other hack that I have clients do is, once they get clear on how they want the audience to feel, they want the audience to feel relieved, supported. Okay, let's say supported, just got internally promoted. Now you never had to run Zoom meetings. Now you do. And now some of your colleagues used to be right level, and now you're their boss, and there's all this stress. It happens all the time.
Right.
So you go in and you focus on I have so many anxiety hacks too, because even I get anxious. I wear ankle weights sometimes. I don't have them on today, but I'll wear ankle weights if I just need to bring my energy down. It just helps. But you're doing that Zoom meeting, just recently internally promoted, and you have the word, I want them to feel supported. So you get to that word, that's your anchor word. So anytime you start going in your head and you start feeling anxious and you start looking at all the faces in the Brady Bunch squares and you're like, why is Ketaki looking at me like that? Right?
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you just say support, and then your energy goes back on them and stays off of yourself.
Right. And I think when we start this exercise, initially, it's not going to be very smooth, because there might be instances where you go with what you want to expect from the session and what you want others to feel, but maybe you didn't deliver it because you weren't completely present. So do you think retrospection of everything that you've done, or all the different conversations that you have, should you come back and reflect on those and see what could have been done better?
100%. Just be cautious of reflecting and not ruminating.
Right.
So ruminating is spinning the wheels and just like berating yourself and, oh, I'm such an idiot and I said that, and then it's like this.
Right. The negative.
And so that goes back full circle to our conversation at the beginning. That's where self-compassion comes in.
Right.
So you need it. It's essential. It's essential. And Kristin Neff, for people who are unaware, she's the pioneer in self-compassion. She's done tons of research on it. She has a book called Self-Compassion to start with. That's more the tender side of self-compassion. Mm-hmm. And then she had tons of data in it. It's all science-backed. It's not touchy-feely BS. Like, it's science-backed. And she just recently came out with a book called Fierce Compassion that shows like how to advocate for yourself. And you can still be compassionate and be a warrior and be like, no, that's not okay. So if anybody needs language or help or whatever, either one of those books, I would absolutely say start at, because reflecting on how you're presenting, it's a slippery slope to slide into rumination and then go backwards to where you started, of being scared of presenting,
And the self-doubt creeps in, and then we just get dragged into that zone, right? So it's not very easy to forgive yourself when you make mistakes, and that's going to be a part of this process when we begin with at least going with the intention of being mindful of what has to happen in this conversation.
Yes, and that's self-compassion. So just to quickly, if someone's unaware, self-compassion is talking to yourself the way you would talk to a friend. It's that way. If Ketaki, did an interview and you got in touch with me and you're like, oh, I just did a podcast interview. It was I just was rambling, or I didn't show up as my best. I wouldn't say, get it together, Ketaki. What the hell's wrong with you? You should not be doing this. You got to stop your show. So why would I say that to myself? Why would I say that to myself? That's ridiculous. So yeah. So it's talking the way you would talk. Like, you have another, what did you learn from this? Like, you have another podcast. You do this for a reason. What's the reason? And everybody makes mistakes. We're all there. We've all done that. That's what helps us move forward, really. And that's where the objectivity of the movie, the self-awareness, helps with the self-compassion, because we all have different parts of ourselves in ourselves. So it allows us to like find that maternal, for me, it's the maternal side, to be able to look at the scared kid side of me and be like, you're good. Like you're whatever I need to say to myself. I don't always, but when I can remember, I reach into that maternal side. Yeah.
Absolutely. So reflecting on what you've done without holding yourself accountable for the mistakes, but then at the same time coming up with an action plan to address that in your next conversations.
Yeah. Hold yourself accountable tenderly.
Right. You've given us so many tips and strategies to handle these situations and not have the frustration of you presenting something and people not being able to grasp what you wanted to say. And that was the intention with this podcast episode. And I hope that our viewers got, even if they can take 1% of this home, then they can definitely be a much better person in handling themselves and in handling how they want to present themselves. Thank you so much, Kristy, for demystifying this this very intimidating stage fright and all this complicated terms related area. Thank you so much for demystifying that for us. And tell me one thing, if people want to find you, if people want to connect to you, where's the best place to reach you at?
So they could go to sowtospeak.com. So that's SOWTOSPEAK.com.
I'll link it in the description.
Find me on Kristy Mandour, so my name on LinkedIn, and at So to Speak on Instagram.
Sure. All right. So then you're very interactive on Insta and on your website.
Yeah. Well, LinkedIn probably the most, I would say.
LinkedIn. Yeah, that's how I found you.
Yes, it is. And I want to say thank you so much for continuing this podcast and doing this podcast. You're just knocking it out of the park. And I said this when you and I first met. You just have such phenomenal, genuine, do-good energy about you. And we need it so much. So, Ketaki, thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Thank you so much, because this is giving me my share of happiness. And in a way, all these conversations are a dose of self-awareness for me. So thank you so much, Kristy, for joining us.